That's okay. Hear ye, hear ye. My name is Connie Katz. As Mid-Atlantic chairs of Americans for Ben-Gurion University, my husband Sam and I are both delighted to welcome you today to the Philadelphia and Delaware chapters 2021 annual tribute brunch. Whether you're tuning in virtually or you're here with us today, we welcome you and thank you. We have an exciting program in store for you today, and before introducing our first speaker, we have lots of thank yous. First, to our esteemed honorees, Dr. Marcia Halpern and J. Leistner. Where are they? And Dr. Carolyn Glazer, Hockstein, and Dr. Neil Hockstein of the Delaware chapter. We're thrilled and excited to pay tribute to you guys today. Also, thank you to our tribute co-chairs, Teri and David Cutler, and Paula and Bill Glazer, and their leadership team who combined efforts to successfully raise funds and friends for Americans for BGU. Deepest appreciation to the chair of the Philadelphia chapter, Sherrie Savett, who is here with us virtually, I assume, and the Delaware chapter, Barry Kayne, for their dedication to the success of this event and for all they do to lead their chapters. To all our sponsors and patrons, we so appreciate your generous gifts, and a very special thank you to Jerry Schreiber for his gift of $50,000, which he's done the last couple years. God bless you, Jerry. And Carol Rothschild, a special thank you to our patron chair, who leads with such incredible energy and enthusiasm. And last of all, on behalf of our very large leadership team here in Philadelphia and all our members, a very special thank you to our professional staff, Claire Winnick and Amy Schrager, for their passion, commitment, hard work, and guidance. They are the driving force that makes for the success of our two chapters, and we bless you both for it. And now, my man Sam.
Well done. All right, there are some pages here for me. But before I do that, I wanted to just say that I grew up at Har Zion when it was in Winfield, so always coming to the synagogue is kind of special. And in a family that was very Israel-centric and very pro-Zionism. And we, at our dinner tables, would hear stories all the time about how the State Department under John Foster Dulles was anti-Israel and how we had to do everything we could to preserve Israel. And today, Connie and I are involved, as many of you may know and many of you may be, in an organization, not Ben-Gurion, that's trying to help support the case in Charlottesville against well, we call them neo-Nazis. I'm not sure they're neo, I just think they're Nazis, who caused such harm and brought about such a focus on white nationalism, anti-Semitism, and racism. On university campuses throughout the country today, we see anti-Semitism being accepted, largely segmented away from racism. Obviously, we see a tremendous amount of angst in the country about Israel. And Connie and I got involved in Ben-Gurion University 21 years ago. I can't think of a better way, although there are many ways, but I can't think of a better way to help reinforce the value and the importance of Israel than Ben-Gurion University and being part of this organization. We heard the words "never again," and we heard that it couldn't happen here. And I think both of those things are soothing and self-delusional. So this is not just a celebration of our honorees and of our university, but a reinforcement of the importance and criticality of our dedication to the State of Israel and to the Jewish people throughout the diaspora. I wanted to make those comments because the trial is on in Charlottesville this week. It's something I would urge you to pay attention to share with friends, because this is America today. And if you read the history of Germany in 1931, 32, and 33, it's not hard to see the mirror. I'm very pleased to welcome, as our first speaker, the president of the Board of Directors of Americans for Ben-Gurion University, Gary DeBode. Gary is an alumnus of A4BGU's Zinn Fellows program, which has its origins maybe 7, 8 years ago, and which many of our members have participated in. He became president of the board, national board, in September of 2020. Gary applies his passion for developing the Negev through his work with A4BGU and the OR movement, both of which are working to realize David Ben-Gurion's vision for the Negev and for Israel. His Jewish nonprofit service at Greater Metro West Federation has included roles on the boards of Partnership for Jewish Learning and Life and the Metro West Jewish Camp Enterprise. I hope you'll join me in welcoming Gary DeBode.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Sam, so much. Good morning. As I said, my name is Gary DeBode, as president of Americans for Ben-Gurion University of the board. I just want to thank you for inviting me to join you today as we celebrate the communities of Delaware and Philadelphia for their exemplary leadership in our work. We're also here to recognize and honor our Beacon of Light in the Negev honorees, Dr. Marcia Halpern and Jay Leistner, Dr. Carolyn, Glazer, Hockstein, and Dr. Neil Hockstein. As we continue to build our movement in the U.S., I want to thank each of you for your work to model success as chapters that have exceeded expectations in building vibrant communities of lay leaders and donors. We are currently forming chapters in the Silicon Valley, in New York, and in South Florida because we believe that the chapters are a vital strategy for us to be able to excel in our ability to support the remarkable work of Ben-Gurion University. I'm very fortunate to have been part of the third Zinn Fellows cohort, along with fellow Philadelphians Deborah Zwieben, Julie Savage, Jackie Needleman, and Zinn program benefactor Lisa Scheller. As we are now preparing for our sixth cohort, I enjoy reflecting back on how it's really been a life-changing event for me. I found my pathway for how I could help to lead the work to improve Israel. And Americans for Ben-Gurion is the way I got there. I'm thrilled to be part of this remarkable organization that helps bring David Ben-Gurion's dream for the Negev to life. Americans for Ben-Gurion University embodies the very essence of 21st century Zionism, helping to build a thriving Israel through education, research, and innovation, driving social and economic impact across the globe. Today, we'll hear about innovation from our featured speaker, Seth Siegel, who will share the latest about innovation in water technology, and from the president of BGU, Professor Danny Shamovitz, who will share an inside look into the new School of Sustainability and Climate Change, which is destined to help the world address the many challenges of global warming. It's now my pleasure to introduce the chair of our Philadelphia chapter, Sherrie Savett, who will be virtually presenting our first Beacon of the Light Negev Awards. An accomplished attorney and dedicated community leader, Sherrie formerly served as president and board chair of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. A true trailblazer, she is a frequent lecturer and a nationally recognized commercial and class action litigator. She has settled some of the largest securities and class action suits in history. A member of the management committee of the law firm of Berger and Montague, and chair emeritus, Sherrie is the only woman in the firm to have held this position. Ladies and gentlemen, Sherrie Savett.
Good afternoon, everybody. As we gather today for the Beacon of Light in the Negev tribute event, I'm recording this because while you're all together at Har Zion, I will be in Israel. This is my 18th visit to Israel, and each one has been memorable. When I was on the beautiful campus of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev a few years ago and saw this miracle in the desert with my own eyes, I knew that Americans for Ben-Gurion University would become a very important part of my community involvement and my life. I am pleased to tell you about the honorees of the Philadelphia chapter, Dr. Marcia Halpern and Jay Leistner, my dear friends. Reflective of this year's theme, Beacon of Light in the Negev, Marcia and Jay have lovingly shined their light on family and on their community. Parents and grandparents to a growing family, they are devoted to their 3 sons and their daughters-in-law and 3 grandchildren. Many family trips, including one to Israel to celebrate their son Daniel's bar mitzvah, have perpetuated the family's tradition and deep connection to the homeland. Marcia and Jay have also enjoyed tours in Israel focused on hiking, wine tasting, and most recently, culinary events. Marcia was born into a family that has deep roots in Israel. A dedicated Zionist, her father, Ernest Halpern, fled Vienna during the Holocaust and went to Palestine to study. In his memory, Marcia and Jay are supporting cybersecurity and Israel studies at Ben-Gurion University. I am proud and grateful that after being introduced to Ben-Gurion University and its mission, at my request, they quickly joined the Philadelphia chapter board of directors, hosted an event in their home for their friends, served as 2020 patron chairs, and are currently associated chairs of the Philadelphia chapter. Their community involvement has centered for over 30 years on their Elkins Park Synagogue, Beth Shalom, where Jay has had several leadership roles. Professionally, Marcia is a neurologist, and she offers encouragement and support to her patients and is often that beacon of light. She attended Cornell University as an undergrad and medical school at the University of Pennsylvania and did her residency at Penn. Her practice was at Jean's Temple, where she was active in teaching residents and medical students and developing the stroke program more recently. She is associated with Penn at this time, seeing patients in Center City at Penn's Rittenhouse location. Jay has received his Bachelor of Arts, 5-year baccalaureate from Syracuse University. His firm is located in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. It is called Phase 2 Architecture and Interiors, and it focuses on custom residential work as well as commercial offices and retail projects. Jay has used his great talents to beautify many spaces, including my own 2 homes. Marcia and Jay have known one another since their teens, and they were both raised on Long Island, and their families were active in the same synagogue, Plainview Jewish Center. As Ben-Gurion University continues to grow, primarily through the development of its North Campus that will double the university's footprint in Beersheba, there is a critical need for Americans for BGU to cultivate new leaders. I thank you, Marcia and Jay, for responding generously with time and resources to fulfill that need. Your efforts will help to ensure those who seek the education that will brighten their futures, that BGU will continue to be a beacon of light in the Negev, and that Israel will continue to shine brightly in the world for future generations to come.
Congratulations, Jay and Marcia.
We love you and we're proud of you. Mazel tov.
Hi, Mom and Dad. Congrats on the honor. We're so proud of you and love that you're continuing Grandpa's tradition of supporting Israel and being committed to learning and education.
Congrats, Marcia and Jay.
Congrats, Marcia and Jay.
Congrats, Mom and Dad. Grandpa would be so proud of your support of Ben-Gurion University.
Congratulations, Mama. Congratulations, my Mom and Papi. I love you.
And now, Jay and Marcia, President and Board Chair Gary DeBode will present you with your award. Mazel tov.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Actually, for such size. Okay. Well, thank you all. Marcia and I were not in agreement about what remarks we should make at this tribute. It's not unusual for us to challenge each other. We've been doing so for more than 55 years. Marcia and I met on a school bus at the end of 6th grade on a trip to the Bronx Zoo from our New York suburban hometown. By the time of her bat mitzvah, I was her boyfriend. Of course, all of our lives are a series of stories. Because Marcia and I grew up together, it feels as if our early stories are almost from different lifetimes. We are fortunate that as we changed as individuals throughout our lives, and that we grew together. I could tell anecdotes for hours. Don't worry, I won't. Although those of you who know me well know that I could actually do that. But after all these 55 years together, we do have a wealth of stories to share.
My feeling is that although our personal history may be semi-interesting to some of you, we are here today because of our interest in and our commitment to BGU. As the daughter of immigrants who fled Nazism, the importance of Israel was ingrained in me, and the importance of education, coming from a family where all material possessions were left behind as they fled, was often repeated and became another core value. My Viennese father was a Zionist from an early age, and later brought all his children and grandchildren to visit Vienna. When we stood outside of what had been his school, he repeated a story underscored for his grandchildren. When the school was gathered for the final assembly before it was forced to close, the headmaster reassured the students by saying, "We will be saying the Shema long after they're done saying Heil Hitler."
BGU touched our hearts and minds because of our love of Israel and our belief in the importance of education. And we are pleased to invest time, money, and love. Educational institutions connect people, enrich individuals, build communities, and ultimately can be a beacon of light, an oasis in a desert.
You've probably heard the expression, "May you live in interesting times," which in a speech in 1966, Robert Kennedy attributed to an old Chinese curse. He went on to say, "Like it or not, we live in interesting times. They are times of danger and uncertainty, but they are also the most creative at any time in the history of mankind."
When you research it, there's no actual Chinese source, but it has been attributed in 1898 to Joseph Chamberlain, a British statesman, who said, quote, "We are living in most interesting times. I never myself remember a time in which our history was so full, in which day by day brought us new objects of interest, and let me say also, new objects for anxiety."
Doesn't that also apply to our times? As an example, our celebration of the vaccine was tempered by the recent worldwide surge in the Delta variant and the uncertainty as to whether there will be another worse variant and even how to vaccinate the billions of people around the world. When the messenger RNA vaccine represents a possible medical revolution, astounding in its speed from development to shots in the arms, and may lead to vaccines for other viruses like HIV and viruses yet to come. Dr. Tal Zaks, a medic in the IDF and a BGU medical school alum, became chief medical officer at Moderna and had a critical role in the development of this vaccine. We are here celebrating BGU, which was named for a man who has several famous quotes, but one that speaks to us is, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. And we believe that this university, in its first 50 years, has shown us how to believe in miracles, and not just in the miracle of the existence of the State of Israel, but the amazing developments that the university's interdisciplinary research centers, often in partnership with companies and investors, is leading research in robotics, nanotechnology, cybersecurity, water resources, and alternative and renewable energy sources, as well as medicine with social conscience and commitment to community engagement.
Ben-Gurion also said, quote, "It's not enough to be up to date. You must be up to tomorrow." We believe that BGU is a rising star and will be leading in the solution to many of our world's problems. We are committed to helping BGU and are thrilled and humbled to be honored today, along with Neil and Carolyn, and truly appreciate your support of the BGU mission. We are especially moved that so many of our friends and family joined us in person and via live stream for this very special honor.
We are very proud of our 3 sons and the women they have brought into our family, as well as the 3 grandchildren who bring out the light in our eyes. We are so happy that our family has gathered here today to understand why BGU is so important to us. We want to extend a mazel tov to Neil and Carolyn, and of course a special thank you to Sherrie Savett, Connie and Sam Katz, David and Teri Cutler, Claire Winnick, Amy Schrager, and the leadership team, as well as everyone who participated through a gift and are here with us now, whether virtually or in person.
Thank you. Doug Seserman, our next speaker, who is known for his creative business vision, is the Chief Executive Officer of Americans for Ben-Gurion University. Following a 15-year tenure as President and CEO of Jewish Colorado, the Jewish Federation in Denver, he joined our organization in 2017. Doug received a Gold Stevie Nonprofit Executive of the Year award and was named to the Forward 50 for his success in reimagining of the Jewish Federation for the 21st century. Prior to entering the Jewish nonprofit arena, he worked in cable television and consumer products marketing. Doug has a BS and MBA from Northwestern University. Doug, the stage is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you to Jay and Marcia. Whenever I hear my bio being read, it's very strange, but I'm my mother's son. That's what really drove me to this work. I think it's great that we're here at Har Zion because Har means mountain, as you know, in Hebrew, and who would have thunk that the mountain of modern Zionism was going to be in the Negev desert. So if there's one thing you remember from today, I think that would be it. So thank you, congratulations on your honor, and also to the doctors, Carolyn and Neil Hockstein, for receiving the Beacon of Light Award. We're so grateful for everything that our lay leadership does for us. It's also great to be here in person for A4BGU's first ever hybrid event. And you can critique afterwards what worked and didn't work because we have a nice group here gathered today. We're streaming live on the internet. We'll be sharing later with social media, and we'll count afterwards how many people participated in the program. And something tells me it will be one of the largest events we've ever done here in Philadelphia. So congratulations to you and to Claire. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible staff that works so hard behind the scenes, led in Philadelphia, of course, by the incomparable Claire Winnick, and supported and by a lot of hardworking staff around her, Amy Schrager, who is here locally, and also Melody Machtarian, our Director of Events and Experience, who's also joined today by Allie Robinson and Stephanie Aronson, who are all part of our headquarters team in New York that help support the different chapters around the country. So thank you to all of you. I also want to acknowledge our board president, Gary DeBode, for traveling all the way here today to be with us. It means a lot to the organization and to me personally. And also just to acknowledge Sam and Connie and our incredible chapter leadership, Sherrie Savett, Barry Kayne, for everything that you do. And also Jerry, I didn't see you earlier, but thank you, Jerry, for your very generous presenting sponsorship. Okay, so now most of you, I'm guessing by now, have a sense for what Ben-Gurion University of the Negev is. And if you don't, by the end of the program, there will be a pop quiz. But my job is to shed a little light on Americans for Ben-Gurion University and maybe share with you what you may not have known before. You see, at Americans for Ben-Gurion University, we do three things, and all of them are in support of David Ben-Gurion's vision for Israel, the Jewish people, and importantly, the Negev. First, we raise awareness for Ben-Gurion University and the role it plays, not only as a remarkable institution of education and research, but also as the engine for growth for the entire Negev region. Sometimes we call that the Stanford effect, the impact that Stanford had on Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, the same effect BGU has on the Negev in the future. We obviously raise financial resources. The majority of philanthropic support that goes to the university still comes from the United States. And third, we run programs, as has been mentioned before, like our signature Zinn Fellows Leadership Program that engages and immerses the next generation of American leaders in both the Negev and BGU's vital work. I want to acknowledge all our Zinn alumni who've joined us today, both in person and online, and also extend my congratulations to Marjorie Schreiber-Roshkoff, who's our newest Zinn Fellow in Cohort 6 from the Philadelphia chapter, who's living in the spirit of Lador Vador from generation to generation and assuming the leadership of her father before her, Jerry. Now, why does the work at Americans for Ben-Gurion University really matter today in November of 2021? The truth is, and Sam I think touched on this earlier, we're at a moment in time where we can't take Israel's future for granted. And unfortunately, in this country and in the world, too much time is spent arguing about what's wrong with Israel, and not enough time is spent focusing on what's right. And that's where we come in. You see, our work at Americans for Ben-Gurion University transcends political differences between people. Our work is about educating 20,000 students, most of them Israeli, representing diverse segments of the society. In fact, we have more Bedouin students than any university in Israel. We also educate some 1,000 international students who study in English from over 50 countries around the world. If you really want to create a cadre of young ambassadors for Israel, have them come study at Ben-Gurion University. And in Philadelphia, you should take great pride in BGU's accomplishments with international students, because to a large degree, BGU's success in this area was pioneered right here in Philadelphia by the Ginsberg Ingerman Overseas Student Program. Thank you, Stanley. And I think it's also important just to remember Ira of blessed memory. Our work is about breakthrough science, addressing some of the world's most pressing problems like climate change, as Gary mentioned before, and cybersecurity. Our work is about the contribution to society from our alumni, like Marcia mentioned, Dr. Tal Zaks from Moderna. Our work is also about collaborating with top-tier universities around the world, like the incredible work that's done here locally and promoted by Philadelphia's Academic Bridge, thanks to Al Setnick and also his fellow co-chairs Richard Harward and Rob Zipkin. Our work is about innovation In fact, BGU was once again recently recognized as one of the top 50 universities in the world for entrepreneurship. Some might even call this map of our Beersheba campus the startup nation on steroids. And if you haven't visited there recently, we know most of us haven't been there, it's time to go again because so much is changing so fast. And finally, our work is about the spirit of giving back. Sometimes as Jews, we call this the value of tikkun olam. BGU is not simply an ivory tower academic institution. We purposefully leverage our human and physical assets of the university to uplift the community around us through programs like the Open Apartments and many more. The bottom line is we offer a terrific opportunity to support and rally around the best accomplishments of modern Israel in a part of the country that nobody is arguing about. In fact, we believe that together with Ben-Gurion University, we can serve as a Migdalor, a beacon of light that emanates from the Negev desert, which is why today's tribute event is so aptly named. You may already know this, but we in the States recently changed our name from American Associates, Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, to Americans for Ben-Gurion University. I now want to show a short video that just explains a little bit more about our rebranding effort. The future of Israel will emerge from the Negev. David Ben-Gurion said these words long ago. When it comes to the Negev, Ben-Gurion didn't just see a vast, barren desert making up 60% of the land. He saw the future. And he was right. Israel's founder, first prime minister, and namesake of our university, Ben-Gurion was a visionary who led by dreaming big. Thanks to the creative, brilliant minds at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, innovative solutions are solving some of Israel's and the world's most challenging problems. Today, the Negev region is thriving. It has become the beating heart of modern Israel, pulsing with even more potential than what's already there. And it's just the beginning. BGU has developed a remarkable model of education and multidisciplinary research. Its entrepreneurial spirit and innovation is driving the economic development of the entire Negev region. We are now proud to be known as Americans for Ben-Gurion University. We are Americans living in the diaspora. Our aim is to launch a movement among those who believe the world is simply better off because Israel is in it. We believe in Israel. We believe in David Ben-Gurion's dream. We are Americans for Ben-Gurion University. Join us. Together we will be partners in the remarkable. Now, remind me to give the narrator a bonus at the end of the year. You'll see that the idea of our movement is to change the conversation in the States from what's wrong about Israel to what's right. And in so doing, we believe that we have a chance to have our message resonate not only with ardent supporters like yourselves, but also the next generation of America's young Jewish leaders, and maybe even those, many of whom you may know and are even in your family, who are straying from Israel. Thank you all for participating today. We're so glad to have you join us. Together, we really, truly believe we can be partners in the remarkable. Marcia also stole another line from my talk today when she mentioned David Ben-Gurion's quote, and he has many, that in Israel, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. I'm confident standing here today that with your continued support, the miracle of the Negev will always be in bloom. Our next speaker, Dr. Barry Kayne, is the founding chair of the Delaware chapter. Barry has nurtured this young chapter through his dedicated leadership. He's a member of our national board and will conduct Delaware chapter's honoree ceremony. Please join me, Dr. Barry Kayne.
Dear friends, as the afternoon continues and the excitement builds, I must admit I'm more inspired than ever by what this incredible university is doing. It is not only a beacon of light in the negative, it has accomplished so much in the Beersheba region, in Israel, and throughout the world. My wife, Reiko, and I are proud and humbled to be a part of this exceptional institution. Marcia and Jay, I'm honored to know you, to hear your story. I want to thank you and give you a heartfelt congratulations on this very special day in your lives. To Gary and Doug, Americans for Ben-Gurion's University contributions to the ongoing success of the university are really, truly remarkable. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your remarks with us. And now, friends, I invite you to watch the video which introduces and celebrates our honorees. The video, please.
The Delaware chapter is proud to recognize Dr. Carolyn Glazer Hockstein and Dr. Neil Hockstein for their achievements and their values. Like a beacon, they shine their light in the community, in turn inspiring others to also make a difference. From the inception of the Young Delaware chapter, Neil and Carolyn have been involved in its development. They have a deep love for Israel, especially the Negev, so they felt a strong attachment to an organization whose goals they shared. Neil serves as an associate chair of the Delaware chapter and participated in Americans for BGU's Zinn Fellows Leadership Development Program. Together, they have co-chaired the Mid-Atlantic 2019 Tribute event and have hosted in their home, reaching out to others to join them in support of BGU. Carolyn and Neil are supporters of many organizations that benefit the Wilmington community and far beyond, including their synagogue, Congregation Beth Shalom of Wilmington, Delaware. Carolyn and Neil met as students at Jefferson Medical College and both continued on to the University of Pennsylvania, where Carolyn completed a residency and fellowship in ophthalmology at the Shea Eye Institute. Neil completed a residency in otolaryngology, head and neck surgery. Following their training, they moved to Delaware, where they are each in private practice. They have both taken leadership roles and have been recognized for excellence in their respective fields. Carolyn served as president of the Delaware chapter of Academy of Otolaryngology. Neil is co-director of the Head and Neck Cancer Program and medical director of surgical specialty services at Christiana Care. Recently, he helped implement COVID testing in Delaware, serving as chair of the Newcastle County COVID Task Force. He has been recognized as a top doctor by Philadelphia Magazine. They are loving and proud parents of Leah, who is 18, and Aaron, who is 16. They have shared many family trips to Israel with their parents and grandparents. Leading by example, Carolyn and Neil have carved out time in their busy professional careers to serve their community. Tzedakah, charitable giving, is a mainstay in their lives. They are guiding Leah and Aaron to follow in this direction. In the words of David Ben-Gurion, the state of Israel will be judged not by its wealth or military strength, but by its moral wealth and human values.
Mazel tov, Carolyn and Neil, on this well-deserved honor. I'm pleased to add my thanks to those you've already received. I want to thank you for everything you do for Americans, for Ben-Gurion University, and for our Delaware chapter. Your enthusiasm for the university and your outreach to your friends and the community have really helped us reach our goals and expand. I am very, very grateful to both of you.
Thank you so much for taking us to Israel.
Mom and Dad, we're so happy for you. We love you. They're visiting me in Boston for College Parents Weekend right now. And I think that the best way to get me home is to take me back to Israel on Lila Lavon. It's my favorite memory. We love it there, and we love you.
Bye, I love you.
Carolyn and Neil, it is my honor to present the Beacon of Light in the Negev Award to you. Please join me at the podium.
Good morning. Neil and I want to thank you so much for this wonderful honor. Thank you for all of you who are here with us today and those that are also with us virtually. Thank you, Barry, for that very kind and wonderful speech, and congratulations to Marcia and Jay. You both spoke beautifully. Israel is my past, my present, and my future. My past begins when I was about 12 years old and I first visited Israel with my mother and my brothers. I vividly remember climbing Masada in the heat of the day in August with my brothers, feeling like I was going to die. We almost had no water. Ted, remember, you got me up the mountain. But I made it. And then the Israel of my past is my daughter's bat mitzvah in Jerusalem and my son's bar mitzvah in Haifa. Moments of pure joy for my family. On more recent family vacations, we marvel at the development that has taken place over the years. I remember the dry, dusty terrain in the early 1980s. And now we see water pipes coming out of the desert that are feeding seemingly endless fields of trees and agriculture. My Israel present is the immense pride I take in the manner in which Israel has battled COVID. I am constantly amazed at this tiny little country in the middle of the desert that's a world leader in COVID research and policy. Israel has set the standard for other countries to follow, truly extraordinary. My present and future Israel blend together. From the global pandemic to research in medicine, science, and agriculture, Ben-Gurion University is the epicenter of these achievements. We love the Negev, and we appreciate the mission of developing uncontested land. We strongly believe that supporting Ben-Gurion University honors our past, our present, and our future. Thank you.
So, why is it so important to look to BGU as our future? And I think we're all singing from the same hymnal. The world is changing. And unfortunately, we see rising anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. We hear far-right protesters saying that Jews will not replace us. And we hear it from the progressive left when they say it's all about the Benjamins. This normalization of hatred is scary. You know, Carol and I learned about this anti-Semitism firsthand and how it penetrated our lives when our daughter Leah was looking at colleges. And she was evaluating the presence of BDS and anti-Semitism on college campuses. And schools that we thought might be a good fit weren't because of how their communities feel about Israel. And it's not just here in the US. In Europe, in South America, anti-Semitism is on the rise as well. And so what does anti-Semitism have to do with a university in the middle of the desert? Well, that brings us to our theme, the beacon of light. You know, Hasbara, or public diplomacy, has been really challenging. The narrative is about what's wrong with Israel, and we hear stories about the West Bank and Gaza and human rights challenges. And the history of Israel is really not very well understood by our younger generations. And so we need to look to the present and to the future. And the work that happens on the campuses of BGU is that beacon of light. And if BGU is helping to strengthen Israel, you know, through its development in the Negev, through its cyber research, its work with the Army, but it's also a model of Tikkun Olam. And, you know, the Institute for Desert Research can help not just Israel, but California and Africa and all of the warmest parts of our world. And, you know, researchers at BGU are developing advanced robotics, and my son Aaron and Leia and I held them in our hands, held these tiny robots in our hands. And to see this medical research come into our lives and to export it to the world, that's our future. In neuroscience, BGU researchers have found a molecule that slows the progression of ALS and Alzheimer's. And we can go on and on about all the great work that they're doing. What strikes us almost the most is that, you know, Carolyn has taught me a lot. So I'm a proud feminist. And we so appreciate that in the Middle East, where women's rights are challenged, there are over 1,000 Arab students at BGU, hundreds of Bedouins, and 70% of the Bedouin students are women. And it's changing their lives for the better. So, sharing this great work with the world that BGU is doing good in order to do well, that's our best defense against anti-Semitism. And BGU is demonstrating the value of Israeli ingenuity and hard work, and it's our future. And so for that, we're grateful. Carol and I thank you for this wonderful tribute, and we thank each of you for your support of BGU and Israel. Thank you.
Carolyn and Neil, thank you for honoring us, and thank you for sharing your very inspiring remarks. Our featured speaker, Seth M. Siegel, is an award-winning author and entrepreneur, and his critically acclaimed New York Times bestseller, Let There Be Water, Israel's Solution for a Water-Starved World. He tells how Israel transformed a desert into a blooming nation, and in the process, how it became a global hub for water technology and innovation. Mr. Siegel was also a producer of the Tony Award-nominated Broadway revival, Man of La Mancha. He has recently assumed the position of Chief Sustainability Officer of NDRIP, an Israeli company that is revolutionizing irrigation technology for the world. And now, Seth, please join us.
Hi. Speaking of beacon of light, everybody who's been up here today knows that there's a beacon of light shining right in our eyes right there. So Hello, all of you here, and hello, all of you dozens, hundreds, or thousands on the virtual world. Great to see you all. Some of you may remember that I was a speaker of yours a few years ago at a much larger event at the Museum of Jewish Culture, Heritage, History. I don't have the exact name of it, but you know what I'm talking about, near the Liberty Bell. And it was a great joy. Among the reasons why that was a great joy and why it's relevant today, aside from the fact that I promise it won't be the same talk, the reason why is that time, my wife, Rachel, who's with us today, and I drove down from New York to speak. The reason was that the book, Let There Be Water, Israel's Solution for a Water-Starved World, had just come out. And I had asked the person who had invited me to speak to you all at that time whether or not we could invite some friends who live in Elkins Park to come down and spend some time with us that same day. And these are just not just dear friends who are fun and interesting people. These are the types of the dearest of friends. Everyone should have at least one of these types of friends. So when you really have a problem, these are the people you call. And to square the circle, it turns out that those two friends were Jay and Marcia. Neil and Carolyn weren't available that day. Jay and Marcia came in from Elkins Park. That was their very first ever engagement with Ben-Gurion University. And the circle comes around. And today they are your honorees. Today they are your activists. And what a wonderful story that is for us in our community. So congratulations to you guys. Great to see you again. That book that I had just mentioned, Let There Be Water, is a story about Israel. Some of you, have any of you know that book? Any of you have it? I know you bought copies for your children, grandchildren, neighbors, co-workers. Don't be shy. That book was for me and for my wife and our children a Cinderella story. A Cinderella story because I wrote the book really for myself, to educate myself about a story about Israel that had never been told before, a story about how Israel, in pure goodness, looking out for its own interest, ended up making itself a water-rich country, and then was able to export those technologies, those ideas, those practices all around the world to the betterment of the world. Soon after I spoke to you at that event near the mall in Philadelphia, the book became a New York Times bestseller. From there, it began to be taken by publishers around the world, and now there are some 21 different foreign language editions of Let There Be Water, sold in more than 50 countries around the world. The book, and I have a reason for telling you this, the book was, after being a success in the United States and continues to be in print in the United States, continues to be used in many university courses in the United States. The book ended up on the bestseller lists in countries as diverse as Vietnam, India, and Czech Republic. So the story has been told widely. But the reason I share all this with you is because many of us think that the world hates us. And I'm not sure always that that is true. I think most of the time the world just isn't thinking about us until they need something, and lo and behold, Israel or Jews like Moderna or Pfizer helps to solve the problem at hand. And it turns out that there is massive interest in an ever drier world, in a world where water scarcity, not a problem in Philadelphia or Delaware, at least not yet, but a grievous problem in about 20 US states, becoming far worse: California, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, the entire Southwest, now increasingly in the Northwest, some parts of the Southeast of the United States, and in Africa and in Asia. And why is this a problem? It's a problem because not only is there going to be higher food prices coming, it's a problem because there are parts of the world where the water will run out because there has not been smart management of that water. And unless those parts of the world start using Israeli-type technology and Israeli-type practices, you're going to see a phenomenon, just as I predicted that about 10 years ago, I predicted that water scarcity was going to become a national agenda item. I'm going to share with you what you should also be understanding. If we don't address this problem, we are going to see the likes of a human catastrophe that we can't quite imagine, something worse than the aftermath of World War II with refugee flows going around the world. There are more than 100 million people in India who are living in places where the water is at risk of giving out. Where will they go? Get ready for the phrase water refugees. And it's not just India. 65 million people in sub-Saharan Africa. Tens of millions in South America. You think that the flow of people coming to the US border right now is extreme? Wait till these people are living in places where they can't grow food, they can't have hygiene, where they can't live their lives. But the great news is that Israel has demonstrated, living in the driest region in the world, in a place, as you saw, that it's 60% desert, a place that has rainfall maybe from October, November to maybe March, April, a place where they have a fast-growing population and a dynamic economy. Despite all that, Israelis get to live their lives and have an agricultural life as if they're living in the most water-robust places in the world. And that is very, very good news. It's good news because of the fact that as we look around the world, water problems come at you not like an earthquake or a tornado or a tsunami. Water problems do you the great favor of coming at you very slowly. And if you are wise, and now increasingly around the world, Israel is the model for countries all over the world. They want to know, what did Israel do? Now, in the course of my research for Let There Be Water, I had the occasion to spend many weeks reading through the diaries of some of the early Zionist leadership. And the reason I did that was I was curious to know, how did this interest in water start? And I started going through the diaries in particular, of one fellow, and he started talking about water issues, talking about defense, started talking about immigration absorption, started talking about other things, but talking about water issues in particular, starting in his diaries in the 1920s, accelerating in the 1930s. The 1940s, a little less so, focused initially on what's happening in Europe, but by the latter part of the 1940s, obsessively writing about water and what we're going to do. By the 1950s, talking day after day in his diaries about desalting the sea, which becomes desalination today, talking about how we're going to transform agriculture so that we'll be able to grow our food, talking about how we can reuse wastewater, and guess what? Every one of those things came to pass. Desalination, today Israel is the undisputed world leader. Today, wastewater reuse, Israel reuses about 85% of all of its sewage, treats it to an ultra-high pure level. You could drink it if you had to, but they don't make you drink it. They use it especially, Carolyn was talking about those special pipes she saw while driving down to the Negev. Those are special pipes that are created just to transport this water. This is water that is used for agriculture in a safe, scientifically wise way. And in agriculture, Israel leads the world, not in GMO reproduction of seeds and plants, but Israel leads the world in rethinking how agriculture can be done. You know what? It takes a lot of water to grow every part of the plant. So just take one plant, for example. Many of us have grown tomatoes in our backyards. Lots and lots of leaves, long, long roots. Israeli scientists figured out, well, it's a lot of water to grow those leaves and those roots. So you know what? They came up through normal breeding with short roots, no leaf tomato plants. Get lots of tomatoes, but not a lot of waste. And that's the same for lots of other crops. They figured out a way to use salty water to make all kinds of plants, cucumbers, tomatoes, melons, peppers, just a whole produce section of plants. And how do they do that? They came up with a whole different way of breeding plants so that the plant, instead of rejecting salty water, thrives on that salty water. So that water that is otherwise of no value to anybody gets used there. That person whose diaries I was speaking about, won't surprise too many of you, was the diaries of David Ben-Gurion. And once again, we see how the circle comes around, how when you start thinking about something far enough in advance, in the 1920s and 1930s, today, close to 100 years later, Israel leads the world, in part, and not in small part, because of the extraordinary work of Ben-Gurion University. My wife and I have been down there. We've been honored to be supporters of lots of the programs in the water research, supporting scholarships for students there in the water sciences area. We understand that Ben-Gurion University is one of the key reasons for the success. I was mentioned in the introduction that I recently became the Chief Sustainability Officer for a revolutionary agricultural tool, a tool that will transform the world of irrigation everywhere. Again, comes out of Israel. Many of the executives of the company come from Ben-Gurion University. So there's two circles I've said. The first circle with Jay and Marcia coming around. The second circle with David Ben-Gurion writing his diaries and coming up 100 years later with this great water-advanced nation. There's a third circle. The third circle is this, and I want to thank everyone here and everyone who's watching online. There's a third circle, and the third circle is just as Ben-Gurion worried about and thought about, and just as Jay and Marcia came down and somehow or other the spark was lit, in the same way what all of you do will ensure that there'll be yet another circle that will close. That the research that is being done, particularly in the area of my concern of water scarcity, will assure us, or at least give us the opportunity, that in an ever drier world, a world where real human catastrophe is at chance of happening, Israel and Ben-Gurion University will be playing an ever more extraordinary part and role in pushing that day off and keeping the world safe, stable, and secure in the way that Israel has done time and again. The prophet Isaiah spoke of Israel being a light unto the nations. I believe that all of us believe that all the time. And with this type of work that we all are doing together as donors, as activists, this is something that we can see that once again Israel will be a light unto the nations. Now, Ben-Gurion University is not only about water, although I'm glad to say it's a lot about water, but to hear a little bit more about what the university does, perhaps including a little bit about water, but not only about water, I'm pleased to have to introduce a video from University President Daniel Shamovitz, who will tell you more about the university now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Seth, for your insight and your friendship with BGU over the years. My dear friends in the Philadelphia and Delaware community, I wish I could be there with you to celebrate the tribute brunch with you. I am looking forward to traveling to the United States soon and hope to be able to spend some time with you. I'm also honored to send my gratitude to your honorees today. Dr. Carolyn Glazer Hockstein, Dr. Neil Hockstein, Dr. Marcia Halpern, and Jay Leistner. You are truly beacons of light for your dedication to Ben-Gurion University of the Negev and to Israel. And now, I am so thrilled to share with you some exciting news coming from Ben-Gurion University. Here, take a look.
Imagine having the power to change our planet, to create a world where natural disasters are long forgotten, where global climate change is no longer a threat to our very existence, a safe home for people to live, a secure environment for all living creatures. Or don't just imagine, believe. Ben-Gurion University of the Negev introduces the School of Sustainability and Climate Change. The place where nature and technology unite to create and not to destroy. Utilizing 5 decades of finding solutions to real-life problems with the expertise of over 150 research labs, working hand in hand with industry and government, translating local ideas into global solutions that we are compelled to share with the rest of the world. Imagine having the power to change our planet. Or don't just imagine. Join us and be part of writing humanity's next chapter. The School of Sustainability and Climate Change. Ben-Gurion University of the Negev.
Dear friends, as I'm speaking right now, as I'm recording this, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is getting on a plane to fly to Glasgow to give probably one of his most important speeches at the COP26 conference on climate change. The whole world realizes that combating climate change is the challenge of our generation. And if we don't succeed, our children and grandchildren are going to be in trouble. Ben-Gurion University realized this way before other people. It was even, if you think of David Ben-Gurion, who close to 60 years ago said that scientists and researchers will sit in the gates of the Negev, uncover the secrets of our country, how to make energy from the sun, water from the air, and food from the sands. What was once a local problem is now recognized as a global one. How to succeed, how to thrive in a dry, ever hotter environment. And it's because of this that Ben-Gurion University 6 months ago inaugurated Israel's first and only School of Sustainability and Climate Change. We are harnessing the genius of over 140 professors, researchers at Ben-Gurion University from all fields, from desert studies to engineering to social sciences to public policy to human health and even humanities, to develop unique solutions for climate change and to educate the next generation of influencers, policymakers, scientists, and technologists who are going to pave the way for the future, not only of Beersheba, not only of Israel, but for all of humanity. With your support, we will continue doing the impossible, because from our place in the Negev, we see things differently. We always have seen things differently. And through this vision, we will help change the world. Thank you so much for your support.
I was worried I was not going to make that step. I'm glad it worked out. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this program, I have one word in mind, and that word is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. The more I learn about Ben-Gurion University, the more I want to spread its inspiring message. Thank you, President Chamovitz, for your presentation about BGU's exciting plan for a School of Sustainability and Climate Change, which I think we all recognize is incredibly crucial at this point in time. And thank you, Seth Siegel, for informing us about cutting-edge advancements in water research and technology. And I count myself and my wife count myself as dear friends of Marcia and Jay, and you hit it right on the head. Individually, spectacular people, and an inspirational couple. We love you. I'm David Cutler, not the builder, and my wife Teri and I, along with Paula and Bill Glazer, have had the privilege, a true privilege, of chairing this Beacon of Light in the Negev tribute event. As friends of Marcia and Jay, it was my pleasure to reconnect with Americans for Ben-Gurion University in this way. Mazal Tov to Jay and Marcia, Carolyn and Neil, as we share this beautiful milestone in your lives. We hope you enjoyed our program, whether in person at beautiful Har Zion Temple or virtually in the comfort of your home. It sounds like a commercial, doesn't it? We deeply appreciate the support of each and every contributor. I have spent time at Ben-Gurion, time with Rivka Karmi, the former president, and I'm a longtime Israel advocate. I lived in Israel in 73 and 74 for 14 months before, during, and after the war, and have lifetime associations and friendships. I have a daughter who lives in Jerusalem. I still do business in Israel, and to me, Israel is something that every Jew on the planet can look to be proud of and to love and support. I acknowledge and thank Mid-Atlantic's talented chairs, Connie and Sam Katz. Their leadership is not about a title, but about impact, influence, and inspiration. I want to share with you something very exciting and that pleases me personally quite a bit. Sam, who is, as many of you know, is a documentary filmmaker, received the prestigious Library of Congress Levine Ken Burns Prize for Film for his newest production, beautifully titled, Gradually Then Suddenly, The Bankruptcy of Detroit. Mazal Tov, Sam. I think we should give Sam I think you got a lot more projects coming up that could have gradually then suddenly in the title, because things are catching up to us and you need to talk about them. In the words of David Ben-Gurion, to make a university, what you need is a dream. And when you find the people who believe in the dream and who are willing to underwrite it, then you have a university. You and I are the dreamers and believers, and our dream is coming true. I hope you'll enjoy the brunch being served. I'm sure I will. At the tables in the rear of the room. And for those who pre-ordered brunches to go, please stay in this part of the room and you will receive your packages. I'm going to recite the Motzi. I hope you'll all join in with me. And I wish you all a wonderful day. Thank you, Claire. Claire is so amazing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.